Right here. Let's see, this way. How about that?
Yes, that is perfect.
Yay!
How you doing today?
Um, I'm good. I have a 2.5-year-old, and we are on day 3 of potty training. So,
Okay. Yeah, things are crazy. We're in the middle of trying to move from Ohio to Arizona, and we have to get
oh my,
the cat fixed like the day we're leaving tomorrow, and we have to get the cat fixed. And so things are insane on my end too.
geez. Well, that's exciting. A big move.
Yeah, we're getting married, moving down to Arizona. So things are awesome.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. But to focus on you, thank you for talking to me. Um,
Yeah, of course.
I just watched Antidote, so I wanted to ask you some stuff. Um, when did you first get involved with that film? Did you already know what the plot was going to be, or was there some secrecy around certain things?
So, this is what's so crazy about the movie is I got involved about, I would say, I think it was no less, or I'm sorry, no more than a week before they started shooting. Um, they originally had the movie cast with a different actress, and she did the table read, she met the whole cast, blah, 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 blah. And as everyone knows, it's an independent horror film. You know, they're not the cushiest sets, they're sometimes really intense. And so she ended up backing out of the movie a week before production started. And Peter, the director, had already he rented this entire warehouse, excuse me, in downtown Los Angeles and built the facility inside of it. And so he was like, I need an actress. Like, oh my gosh, I need an actress. And I just happened to have worked with the DP, Lucas Patasi. I worked with him earlier that year on a short film called The Springfield 3. And so Lucas sends me an Instagram message at like 11:30 p.m. Mind you, at that point, my daughter was like almost a year old. I'm just hanging out at home, just being a mom, you know? And I was like, and he sends me this message and he's like, hey, what's your month of October look like? And I was like, what do you mean, the entire month? And I was like, I mean, it's like open, I guess, like whatever comes along, you know, we're actors, we're just available. And he was like, I want to send you this script. He told me nothing about the script. He didn't tell me what character I should look at. He didn't tell me the director. He literally just sent the script. This is Lucas. He's so like cryptic a little bit. He's an amazing DP. And so he sends me the script and I read the script and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And everything that you see in the script, except for a couple of things, were in the original script. And I was like, dude, this is so intense. I go, this is a really great showpiece for someone. And he was like, are you in? I think that's what he wrote me. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, I'm gonna send the director your information. He knows who you are from, I had done a previous project and he had a project and they were both released by the same production company. So he was familiar with me. So the next day I had this phone interview with one of the producers, Alexi, and Peter, the director. And they were like, do you want to do it? Do you want to play Sharon? And I was like, when do you guys start? And they're like, Monday. And it was like Wednesday night. And I was like, oh my God, okay, sure. And this was like my first, besides doing a TV movie earlier that year, that was my first big project coming back after being pregnant. So I was like ready. I was like, let's do this. Like, I'm so stoked. And it was because it's such a, like, I'm in almost every scene and it was so intense. So, yeah, so I didn't have a ton of time to prepare. I'll be honest with you. I had a very limited amount of time. It was then a few days later, I met Alexi and Peter and Lucas and a couple of the other, Louis. We all met for coffee in Santa Monica outside, like just having coffee pre-COVID, you know, where we could do that. And I started, you know, the next week. And we shot everything. It was about, I think it was like a 35-day shoot. And then after we had wrapped principal photography, Peter added more stuff in because the relationship between Sharon and her husband wasn't there in the
Okay.
original script. You didn't, so all of the stuff with Costas, we shot all the killings of me killing, Nico and stuff like that, but there wasn't the connection tie of the detective and how we met, and like there wasn't any of that stuff. So we actually shot all of that stuff later in January after Peter did a bunch of rewrites, because we had Peter had done a soft edit and he was like, it's just, you don't care about her. You don't care about how she's going to get out. You don't care about why, her family life, blah, blah, blah. So we added those in. And I think honestly now, if we didn't have those scenes, I do not think the film would hold its weight. It needed that relationship to be built. So yeah.
I feel like there's definitely, it needs a character motivation there. It's like, what's the
Yes.
character's future? Like we're exploring the character's past. We have plenty of past scenes that we're seeing, but
Yeah.
like you said, why do we care? Why do we care where Sharon goes?
Yeah.
So I wanted to know then, now that you're back, you said that this is the first big project you've done since your post pregnancy. Do you feel like you have a different energy or even a different approach now that you have? I guess I don't know if this is your first time being a mother, but I guess yeah, okay, great. So I mean, when you came into this film, I know you didn't have a whole lot of time, so maybe that would have been something that was different for you. But do you feel like you attacked it or approached it any differently, or you being a mother and having the
Yeah.
experience of a mother and going through pregnancy? I am a male and cannot experience that. So I am very bad at asking, but hopefully you understand what I'm trying to ask you.
Yeah, totally. And you're exactly 100% going down the right track with that question.
Thank you.
Yes. So I had my daughter, in October of 2018, and October of 2019, I'm filming this badass movie where I'm on wires and I'm flying through the air and I'm doing all this crazy stunt work that I'd never done before. And having my daughter, I had a really great pregnancy. I had a completely natural birth where I gave birth to her in water, 5 hours, just felt like Wonder Woman. And I will tell you that after becoming a mom, just stepping into motherhood, I honestly became a better actor. I became more present. I became just, I have more depth, and I was able to, and I think that's why I kind of jumped at doing this film, is because I was really ready just to dive deep into something. And it wasn't something that was close to home at all, which is cool, because, some of the TV movies and things I do, sometimes they're a little close to home. And so it was just super exciting to attack it from that point of view of now being a mom and having those extra layers inside of me, which I do think helped. And it's been really cool because this was my first project I did, but we shot this in 2019. And so then, I didn't think I was going to work at all in 2020 because of pandemic. And then I ended up filming 3 more features, which are all really cool features. But, I now have just a totally different approach to my work because of being a mom now. And so it's really cool. It's really cool. And I'm super thankful. I love my daughter so much and she's changed me. So I'm here for it,
Well, and also, without any spoilers for the film, that it obviously prepared you for a certain part of your character's arc as well.
Yes.
So I like that a lot, the symmetry between your life and the role.
Mm-hmm.
I am interested in your horror. You seem to, even though you've had a myriad of roles, seems like your big projects are usually based in horror. When you began aspiring to be an actress, did you always have hopes for horror? Is horror a genre that dates back to your childhood, or were you hoping for something else and kind of fell into horror based on the roles that you found interesting?
Yeah, this is a really good question. So I am not a huge horror film buff. I get scared very, very, very easily. I don't watch a lot of horror films. And a funny, just little side note, when I was studying at my conservatory in New York, we had to do a film genres course, and my professor, she made me study horror films because she knew that I was like, I want to do romantic comedies. And she was like, no, 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 girlfriend, you're going to do horror films. And I was like, I don't want to study horror films. I have to watch them and then like give you like reports and like do this thing. And she was like, yes. And I was like, oh my God, this is so scary. But after I graduated, the first big project I ever auditioned for was the Human Centipede. And I did not know what that movie was going to become. You know, when I booked it, again, it was one of these movies where I booked it on a Thursday, and then a week later I was in Amsterdam because they also had already cast the movie with a different girl. And then they found me. And it's kind of like, it's kind of interesting. That theme has been through my life quite a bit, where it's like, I get cast in the project because somebody dropped out or something happens. So by default, I get the role. No. And so it's really cool that I got to experience, you know, because horror films are also so wonderful to new actors, like they embrace them. So I was 22 when I did The Human Centipede, and filmed that movie when I was 22. And you know, we didn't hear anything about it for a year, and then suddenly it's everywhere. It just blows up and it becomes this pop culture icon. And you don't remember the actors in the movie, but you definitely, well, besides Dieter, who plays the doctor, you remember the movie, you remember the premise, and you remember like, oh my God. So because of that movie, I got thrown into the genre where suddenly I was, you know, getting asked to audition for all these really great horror films. And I was then, you know, just dubbed the Scream Queen. And I tried so hard to like, you know, break away and be like, I'm not just a Scream Queen. I'm not just a Scream Queen. And it wasn't until I got into my 30s where I really embraced that title with so much joy, because I'm forever grateful to the horror community for just, you know, their wonderful loyalty to the fans. They, you know, I got to go to a bunch of conventions with the Human Centipede, and just, it was just so exciting and so fun. And again, this is a genre I knew nothing about. And it was such a wild ride being a part of that movie for like 2 years. It was just a wild ride. And then when I did the second one, it was again just a wild ride. And so I'm forever, forever grateful that that's where I started. And I will continue to make horror films well into, you know, my old age, because I love making them. There's really something so fun about portraying a character who goes through all of the emotions, which you don't always get to do. You don't really get to do that in a lot of films. Like a dramatic piece, you don't get to do that. And, you know, romantic comedy, you definitely don't get to do that. But in like, you know, you get to play love story, you get to play the love, and you get to play all the like suspense and that. And then you get to play like a killing, you know, it's like crazy. And it's all packed into one film. And it's so exciting. So long story short, I never set out to be a Scream Queen. But I am so grateful that I am one. So
Well, that's a great answer. And I
yeah.
thought like I had seen a few of your interviews that you had done at conventions and things like that. So I was able to see how excited you were about
Mm-hmm.
how the movie blew up and stuff. And when I was watching Antidote, I was obviously seeing the similarities. You know, there's torture elements. It's actually very similar with, you know, the doctors and everything. With again, no spoilers. I don't want to give any spoilers away for the film, but I was thinking about all that similarity, and I was thinking maybe that's one of the reasons that, you know, the movie spoke to you, or like kind of like
It's definitely one of the reasons why I didn't shy away from it, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Because I was like, oh, I've done the humans. Like I was, it's funny because, you know, sometimes people will send me a script and it's got like some crazy shit in it. And no pun intended for the Human Centipede. But I'm like, guys, I did the Human Centipede. Like, you can't shock me. You know what I mean? Like, I had my face sewn to an ass, like, for like, I filmed that for like 2.5 weeks. And I was really young when I filmed that movie. And so, you know, when Peter's like, hey, we have to saw your leg off. No spoilers, but he was like, you don't have to saw your leg off. And I was like, cool, do it. How are we going to do it? Like, and I was like, I had my knee cut open one time. Like, you know, there's not a lot you can do to shock or surprise me in a script, unless it's something like so out there, or if it's like gratuitous and like sexual for no reason. But in this movie, you know, a lot of the scares and a lot of the gore, you know, it was just really cool the way that Peter weaved the narrative, where I didn't see it coming for a long time when I was reading the original script. I didn't see it for a while that it was purgatory. I didn't see that for a long time. And then when it hit me, I was like, oh, damn. Okay, cool. Very cool. Very, very cool. And I think one of the original scripts, like, it had her coming out from underneath the ground. That's how she escaped. And then Peter was like, we had to get rid of that. And I was like, yeah, you know? And so it was just really cool. You know, there are a lot of similarities, especially because it's medical torture with the Human Centipede. But again, that movie is so standalone on its own with its storyline. And this one, it's just more tame to me, I guess, you know? So it's really cool. But my husband said the same thing. He was like, the trailer, he was like, dude, Human Centipede vibes. And I was like, for sure. With the hospital gowns, the whole thing. So yeah.
100%. And so I want to know, you talked about how shocking, you know, how much of a shocking movie that Human Centipede is, and that, you know, it's hard for anything to come up against it. Was there anybody like in your personal life, especially because you were so young, in your family or anybody in your personal life who tried to, you know, warn you against the role, or was not necessarily like supportive of you because of how crazy that role is and the crazy premise of the film? Or did you have a good support, like a good what is the word I'm looking for?
Support, like a support
Thank you
system.
system.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
a good
Yeah.
support system.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Epilepsy.
No.
So yeah, or did you have a good support system, like based on like, oh, this is huge. This is a starring role in a movie, you know. How did that go for you in your personal life? I'm just curious.
It was super interesting because I have super, super, super supportive parents. They're almost too supportive, where I have tried to quit acting like multiple times, like every actor has. I'm like, I'm gonna go become an accountant, you know, like, Dad, I'm coming to work for you, because I just get tired and I'm like, I can't audition anymore, I'm not booking, you know. And they're always like, no, they're the ones who like talk me down from the ledge, you know. So I have just an amazing, amazing family. And I remember when I called my mom, and I remember exactly where I was in New York City. I lived in New York at the time, and that's where I auditioned for it. And I'm in New York, and I'm in like the lobby of my manager's office building. And I'm like, Mom, I booked a movie. And she's like, what? And remember, I had not, before that, I graduated from my conservatory. I was 22. I'd done some commercials, and I'd done a little bit of like soap opera work. And when I say like a little bit of soap opera work, I was like a walk on, like, hey, that was it, you know, nothing. I literally had nothing underneath my belt. And I was like, yeah, Mom, it's so crazy. And she's like, tell me about it. And I was like, well, I'm going to Amsterdam. So, and I was like, and it's about this doctor who is world renowned for separating conjoined twins. And so his lifelong dream is to conjoin people together. So I'm getting sewn to another girl. And she was like, okay. And I was like, yeah, but like they make one gastric system. So it's like ass to mouth. And she was like, okay. And every person had the same like response. Like even my manager was like, is this a real movie? Like everybody always had the same response. And even in the audition process, like, you know, when you're reading the synopsis of it, you're like, is this real? Is this for real? And remember, this is like 2008 when I filmed this or whatever. And it's like, Twitter wasn't around, Instagram wasn't around, Facebook was still like, you know, for universities. It was like so weird that you were like, there wasn't social media. So it's not like you could get on and be like, what the fuck?
Like MySpace.
Yeah, it was still MySpace for sure. Like your top 8, your favorite song on your, like all that stuff. So, and I was like, yeah, Mom. And they're dyeing my hair because I had like black hair at the time and they stripped it. It didn't work really well. And so I was like kind of red hair. And I was like, yeah, and I'm going to Amsterdam. I'm going to be there for 5 weeks. It's going to be super cool. And she was like, okay. cool. Yeah, let's do it. So my mom and dad and my sisters knew that I was filming it, but then nobody else really knew I was filming it because I wasn't allowed to talk about that movie. I have and because of doing that movie, I now have a very good base for keeping like secrets when it comes to a film, because they don't like you to share too much. You know, when you're on set, you can take BTS pictures and stuff like that, but a Human Centipede, we weren't allowed to do any of that. And then filmed it, had the best experience. It was so cool. Came back, didn't hear anything for a year. A year later, I had moved to Los Angeles, and the Human Centipede, I got an email saying, hey, it's going to play at Fright Fest in the UK, which is the largest horror film festival in the UK. And I was like, again, not knowing anything, I need to go. This is so cool. I booked myself a ticket. I paid for all of this, like just like being this like carefree 23-year-old who's like, sure. So I booked myself. I go to London, and the other actor in the movie with me, Aki, he had come too. And we were bopping around London together. And then he was like, what are you going to wear? And I was like, well, I brought a dress. And he's like, I have a jacket. I was like, cool, let's just celebrate us. Like, we have a movie. We show up to the theater. 1,300 people were there to see it.
Wow.
And then that's when I was like, oh, so that was my first into the horror genre. And I was like, holy shit. Like, it was so crazy. And then that's just launched everything from there. But back to your original question, after it came out, I think if it would have been like horror, like, I mean, that's the thing, because the reviews are so mixed. Like, either you love it or you hate it. And
it's so controversial. Like, one of the most controversial. Yeah. Oh, the shittiest.
Yeah. I've had the shittiest things said about me, which is fine. But I think if it had, I mean, it was one of those things where my mom and dad were just like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, I'm a small town girl from Wyoming originally. And so they were like, you just made history. This is so cool. It's like being in one of the craziest movies ever. And then when I did the second movie, again, my parents were super supportive. And then when the second one premiered here in Los Angeles, my mom and my Nana came out and came to the premiere with me. Like, talk about family support, because that movie is gruesome. It's so gnarly. It's so, I could barely stomach doing the movie. I remember I lost so much weight during the filming of that movie because I was like, this is the most disgusting thing I've ever done in my entire life. It hands down, I just don't even like to think about it sometimes.
And your Nana showed up.
And my Nana came, and she's like, was in her 80s, and she was just like, hey. And then again, we were in Austin for Fantastic Fest, I believe. And my grandparents came, my Nana and my papa, because at the time they lived in Texas. They came up, watched the movie with me, and were like cheering me on. And I was just like, I really do have amazing support. So I never got backlash. If it would have been really shitty and like and had no redeeming qualities, I think I would have been like, okay, I'm just gonna segue into that other career, you know. But it didn't work out that way. It turned out pretty well. So
there was so much information in that answer. I love how you handled it. So I want to know then, it was once you found out that, or once you got the, crazy big reception of the film, did you, or because you didn't get, sorry, let me reword that. Thank God for editing. Because you didn't get the, of the reception of the film, what was it like when you guys were making the movie? Was it fun, or was it very like more serious? Were you guys like, when the camera stopped rolling, I can only imagine how silly it is, or how like awkward it is. So like, were you guys having fun like behind the cameras, or was it all like very serious?
There were definitely parts that were super serious, but for sure there were definitely parts that were very, very serious. But then there were other moments where like, even like, I think on the behind the scenes on the DVD, there's like a video of us like dancing like in the centipede formation, like we're like lifting limbs, because we're just like, you also have to remember you're making a movie. And that was the thing when it came out. A lot of people were like, I can't believe you do that. Like, all this stuff. And I was like, it's a movie, guys. Like, I'm an actor. I play like tons of different roles. It doesn't mean like, what? Like, it was just weird. Like, I was like,
Yeah,
Dr.
yeah,
Hyder
yeah.
doesn't actually, like, Dieter doesn't actually want to sew people together. Like, he's playing a character, you know? Um, so it was definitely challenging, but that movie then prepared me. It really prepared me to basically take on any role that I could, because I did it when I was so young and it was my first feature film. So coming back to Antidote, that's why, like, when I got the script for Antidote, and it was so bulky, like it was so much, and I was just like, let's do it. Oh yeah, I'm in a facility doing all this weird shit, and then I'm out in the woods and we're doing all this weird shit, and then all this stuff, and then we're adding more days, and I'm flying through the air. Sure, let's do it, you know. So I'm really thankful that I had that experience to then set my groundwork for what I could build upon, you know.
I think it gives you a lot, like, I feel like I can sense a lot more confidence in your energy,
Yeah.
probably because, with the crazy reception and the way people reacted to the Human Centipede, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
you can do anything now. Like,
Yeah.
what could be crazier? Let's find out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, I can definitely feel that fueling your passion a bit, and that's
Mm-hmm.
pretty awesome. Um, I don't want to keep you all day, but I wanted to know if an antidote. Did you? I know you said you read the script before you did the film, but because you had such a short time and because things were added in after, were you aware of everything? I know you said you didn't understand that it was purgatory. Were you aware of like the things that were going on with the other characters, or was that something that you basically just kind of did your lines, and the way that the chemistry worked is just like an uh, like basically a side of your acting?
Um, it was interesting because, you know, because again, I didn't have a table read, so I didn't get to meet the other actors before. And normally you get that. So you
Hmm.
get that chance to kind of see, because, you know, when you read Cassandra on a page, you don't know how that person is going to play her or who's going to play her and how they're going to be. So I think for all of us, you know, and I do think that there's this really beautiful ensemble cast that we have. And I'm so like, they all brought their A game when they came on set because they just were so stoked because we were all playing such flawed human beings, such fucked up humans here on Earth, you know, really. And then they got to play like so much regret, so much remorse. And that was the through line through the film that I got just from reading it. Now, when the biggest turn was when I was like, oh, they're in hell. This is so cool, you know, because at first I was like, oh, they are just being experimented on. And then when it's discovered that it is hell, it's, you know, Dante's Inferno. I'm like, this is such a good twist. Um,
The book is
so
there.
yeah, the book it's like really cool. Like Peter's brilliant. I love Peter so much. And he's honestly become like one of my great friends. Like just I see him all the time. I actually just cast one of his short films for him. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, it's just one of those things where you don't know how you're going to work with your other actor or how you're going to, you know, respond and play off of them. But the thing about Antidote was when we were filming it, and even the crew, we all just became one, we all liked each other. That's key. There wasn't a bad apple in the bunch. So we all really liked each other. And like, for instance, the girl who plays Cassandra, her name is Augie Duke. And Augie and I like instantly just became great friends. I would
She's
say
the bald. She's the bald character,
she's a
correct?
bald chick. Yeah.
Okay,
And
just wanted to make sure.
yeah. And in real life, she's this spicy redhead who's just gorgeous, you know, and she did the bald cap and all that stuff. So it was just really cool how I got to, because we had no rehearsal, we had no time before, we're just discovering things on set, but also because it was and I say this longer, because it was a longer shoot for an independent film, because sometimes you shoot these movies in 20 days. And Peter gave us, you know, 15 more than that. So we were never rushed. So if we wanted to, we would do a couple takes like how Peter would direct us. And then he would go, what do you want to do? Like, do you have any ideas? So very collaborative. And it was just really, really fun to like see how it all came together and see how the different relationships, how Sharon responded to each different person. You know, it was like how she responds to Hellenbach, how she is with Cassandra. They form an alliance. Like, well, she thinks she's kind of forming an alliance with everyone, but it was just really, really cool and just a great experience all around. And I'm so proud of like just everybody in the movie. And I'm just so excited for everybody to see it, because I have actually not seen it all the way through. And I think Augie saw it last night, but I haven't. And so a bunch of us haven't seen it all the way through. So we're all like antsy. We're like, oh my God, we made it. Like, also
I'll
just
try
because
not
it's a
to.
beast.
I'll try not to spoil it for you then.
Yeah, because I know what happens, but it's also just seeing it, you know, for real.
Right.
And so it's super exciting, and I'm just so proud of just the entire cast and everybody who worked on the crew, because it was a beast of a movie to shoot. And you know, we're shooting everything in one location basically, and that's one hallway that we tricked out to look like a million different things. And I showed my husband the end scene where, you know, Nico and Sharon are walking through all the different hallways.
Right.
And he was like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. And I was like, that's one hallway that we just kept swiping like by and resetting with extras. And, you know, and they
I
loved
was
that.
gonna ask that actually,
Yeah.
and whether or not the people were actually in the rooms when you were walking down the hallway.
No, they were not. No, that was all just trickery. It's all just camera trickery, which is just
I
the
figured
brilliance.
that's fun.
Yeah, just Lucas Patasi. There were rooms that were built, but only, okay, so here's the hallway. I'm gonna give it this way. Here's the hallway. One side had rooms. Every door had a room behind it. But then the other side was just doors. And then that was backstage. That was where camera gear and makeup and like all this other, like that was just where we sat, you know, that was where we lived. That was G&E. Like it was crazy. And so this room, this side, you could do film in all these different rooms. And I think there was like 7 or 8 different rooms, but it was a very big warehouse. But it's funny because when I see it, I'm like, dude, we totally made it look like it was like this massive labyrinth of stuff. But in reality, it was just one single hallway. That's it. So
That's
it was super cool.
all angles. I love that. That's why
Yeah.
that was like it was one of the questions I had planned on asking. So before I wrap up, we are the same age, so I know that we have gone through like a lot of like we know a lot of the same jokes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I want to know, I'm sure your friends, your husband, everybody kind of pokes fun or makes puns about like the Human Centipede and the fact that you were in those. Like I was curious if there's anything specific like or like that they funnily make fun of you. Like I know there's like phrases like, oh, eat the booty like groceries or things like that. Do people say that to you? Like do people
No,
joke
you're the
with you?
first one to say that one to me. But I will tell you, I am the best conversation starter at any party. Like if you have nothing, like if you're somewhere and you're like, oh man, I don't know anybody. What do I talk about? Hey, do you remember the Human Centipede? Okay, I'm friends with the girl in it. No, crazy. You want to call her right now? She'll tell you. Like I'm just like the best conversation piece. And it's so funny because when the movie came out, so many of my girlfriends, I distinctly remember one of my girlfriends was in an elevator and she went to like FIT, you know, she was like Fashion Institute in New York City. And she's like in the elevator going to class. And there's these 2 people in the elevator and they're talking about the Human Centipede. And she like leans in between them and she's like, that's one of my best friends. Like they had more like pride over it than like, and I shied away from telling people for a very long time. I was like, yeah, I'm in the movie. Yeah. Like I was always just like, like I didn't want to talk about it because I was like, guys. And then when the South Park episode came out, I got so much, just like I elevated on my friend level with everybody. They thought I was just the coolest person ever because I knew that I think it was my manager at the time. Somebody called, I got an email and they were like, hey, South Park's going to spoof. Like, and it was on Beavis and Butthead. And then they were like, South Park's going to spoof it. And I was like, what? We have made it. Like, I was like, hold up. What? And they were like, yeah, there's going to be like a little caricature of you at the back. It's like not you, but it's going to look similar to you. And I was like, holy balls, this is so cool. And then my husband, we were still dating at the time. He was like, oh yeah, you're so cool.
That's
So
that's super cool.
yeah, I instantly got way more cooler with everybody. And I was like, okay, because I'm a huge dork. And so I was like, oh yeah, I was on top. Like, yeah. And like when I go and sign like fan pictures, they always bring the South Park ones. I'm like, totally. Like I had anything to do with it.
Well, that's so funny. We had Towley on the show. So we had talked to him
Yeah.
like not too long ago, and he's also the producer, not Matt or Trey, but he produces the show.
Yeah.
And it's so funny, like talking about how they choose things to adapt, and like obviously we talked about how controversial that is. So I'm sure it was a no-brainer for them to jump on that.
100%. And they did it brilliantly. It's still one of like my favorite episodes. I mean, I'm a huge South Park fan, and I just like, even if I was not in the movie, I'm like, oh, it's so funny. Cause like really whoever does read the whole thing from Apple, like nobody does.
Right.
It's like we're all idiots. We're just like, yes, 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 get me to my phone.
Yeah,
so
that show's so perfect. And I love the fact that I'm the first person to say eat the booty like groceries to you, because that is hilarious. Like that was like the first thing I thought of when I was like, oh, I was talking to my fiance. She loves horror. She was so excited when she found out that I was gonna talk to you. And she's like, well, what are you gonna ask her? I was like, I just want to know if she ate the booty like groceries. Like, so I'm so happy that nobody else said that to you.
Nobody else ever said that to me. That's so funny. I love it. Well, tell her I said hi, because that's so awesome. I love that she's a huge fan of horror. So
yeah,
super cool.
I definitely will. I will let her hear it from your mouth when she gets home. But I wanted to give you a short time. Is there anything else you want to plug? Anything else you want to say about Antidote? Or I know you said you filmed a bunch of features. Anything you need to plug for your future projects? I like to give people a platform to kind of do that stuff.
Oh, you're so sweet. This is what's so funny about when you film movies, you have no idea when they're going to be released, right? You have no control over that. So funnily enough, I have a Lifetime movie coming out on May 9th, 2 days before this movie. So if anybody wants to watch a Lifetime version of Ashlynn being just like a crazy, like, actually, I'm just a very bitchy character in this movie. It's called Burning Little Lies, premieres on Lifetime, May 9th. 2 days later, Antidote comes out, where it's a completely different character. So that's just, it was one of those things. I got told yesterday that movie was coming out 2 days before this one. And my husband and I were laughing about it, because we're like, God, they're so different. We're like, they're just so vastly different. Like, one's Lifetime, it's a TV movie, it's like can't show bloodshed, can't show gore. Like, it's like, very scripted. There's tons of commercial breaks. And then there's Antidote, which is just this beast of a movie,
Well, you're hitting those fucking demographics. You're cussing, so I feel like I have to a little bit.
Oh, I have a huge potty mouth, and my daughter's 2.5, so it's like, you gotta
not to. Got you.
Try not to
keep it to a minimum. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything social media wise that you want your fans to get sent to like to reach out to you if they have questions, or like follow you?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty active on my Instagram page, so they can follow me there. And then if they want to know anything about the movie, for the next couple of weeks, there's a pretty good PR, like, this obviously will be linked on there as well. There's a pretty good PR trail of like little spoilers and giveaway, like, tidbits on their Instagram page, and it's Antidote movie. And then any of the other cast members, if you want to follow them, because they're all just such killer human beings, and I love them so much. So just, I think Instagram is the most like, prominent platform that we have right now. And then there is a Facebook page for the movie as well. And then I'm also on Twitter, so I'll also be sharing stuff on Twitter as well. So
awesome.
Yep.
I think that's a good place to wrap, unless there's anything else that you wanted to say.
No.
Okay.